We all set. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a special meeting of the Greenwich Board of Selectmen. And it is now 3:01, and we are meeting for the purposes to fill a vacancy, a Republican vacancy on the Board of Education. But before we vote, as we heard from Mr. Borsick before, this is not a public hearing, it's a meeting. And why are we here? Well, the Board of Selectmen is statutorily permitted to take action if a vacancy is not filled within 30 days. We are now in like day 94, 95, and several members of the Board of Education on both Republican side and Democratic side has come to me over the last few months and asking me when am I taking action, if I'm going to take action. And I said from the beginning that I'd rather them handle it themselves. I like to stay in my own lane. It's happened before, just with this board. So I was hoping up until just a few days ago that they could work it out. Apparently there were several candidates there, 6 or 7 of them. And I just was informed just a few days ago by the Republicans that they had agreed on a candidate and that they were open to compromise. And I was hoping they'd be open to compromise with the Democratic counterparts on another candidate if that candidate was not acceptable. And the Democrats have nominated somebody that is not acceptable to the 3 members on the Board of Education. Why is that important? Well, number one, we have a precedent here in town. Just recently, in the last few years, the BET has had resignations where the other opposing party has recognized the intent and the wishes of their colleagues and voted for that person. There were a couple abstentions in one case, but they have voted for that person. This completely undoes that. And for people who may not be aware or maybe just moved to town and watching this, ever since I can remember, there's been a debate about in Greenwich, should we go to majority rule on the BET and the BOE? We were only one of 2 towns to have this system. I don't know if any other ones have gone to that in the past few years, but about 6 or 7 years ago, I remember I attended a meeting at Town Hall, and people showed up there and they did not want to go to a majority rule situation. They liked this even split, 4-4 here, 6-6 on the BET. And, there's arguments for and against that. But certainly this probably makes an argument against that now. But the Democrats were in the minority for decades, and they were always holding strong to this position. We like this, it works, don't mess with it. What you're seeing today, what happened yesterday, was an attempt to subvert the will of the 3 remaining Republicans on that board and the will of the voters who did not vote for Democrats last year. So I've spoken to council and they've done extensive research on this. And we want to make sure that the town is protected and that, the efforts that this administration has gone to great lengths the last 4 or 5 years, doing so many things for transparency purposes, to not have our efforts stained with this act. Unfortunately, it's embarrassing. And so I will open up to my 2 colleagues for their thoughts, and then we will entertain a vote. This is a public meeting. It's not a hearing. None of us were speaking yesterday at the meeting that I deemed was illegal through discussions with council. And just so people are aware, the Democrats have retained council. So they're now in an adversarial position with the town. I just want people to know that. I think, Lauren, did your hand go up?
No, I was just pushing the hair out of my face.
Okay, sorry about that. Janet?
So thank you, Fred. If you're turning it over to me to make some comments.
Sure.
Like you and the members of the public who are in virtual attendance, I have been following the story of the Board of Ed vacancy with sharp interest. But I'm puzzled why we, the Board of Selectmen, are meeting today. I know when this meeting was posted, the Board of Ed already had a Wednesday meeting scheduled to vote on the vacancy, And the Board of Selectmen knew we had a regular meeting this Thursday to which we could have added this item. I see no compelling reason to meet at this time. More importantly, I have not seen any written legal opinion from our town attorney that the Board of Selectmen has standing to vote on a Board of Ed vacancy. I'm concerned that we are conflating our authority to break a deadlocked vote for the chair of the Board of Ed with an authority to fill a vacancy. Having closely watched the Board of Ed for many years and talking with community members very familiar with the Board of Ed, many of whom are lawyers, I'm not aware of any practice or statute that gives the Board of Selectmen this authority. I remind everyone that the Board of Ed is a state body and the Board of Selectmen is a town body. None of us want our votes to be relitigated, and as elected officials, I know we are sensitive to the autonomy of elected bodies. Since we don't have compelling evidence in hand that we have the authorization to hold this vote, I will have to abstain from any vote if one is taken today. Thank you.
Janet, thank you so much for your comments. Just to repeat, I have had many conversations about this with town council. Research has been done. There is precedent for this. And again, this is the last thing this board needs to do. We have enough on our plate right now, but there was no compelling reason for an emergency. We can't pick and choose what rules we're going to follow. Whether I was in a state legislature or here in town, the 24-hour notice, that's something that you have to do. And when there's no reason, I see no reason for an emergency meeting, no basis at all for it. And that's why I've come to the conclusion it was an illegal meeting. And we're now going to be having to litigate it now based on the letter that the town received just a few moments ago. So with that, we'll entertain the nominations.
Lauren Rabin, I move that we nominate Paul Capielli to fill the vacancy, the Republican vacancy on the Board of Education, effective immediately.
All right,
Fred
Well,
Camillo, I second that.
hold on.
Yeah, I just, if I could just pipe in, it
Sorry.
actually appropriately should be a motion to appoint. Janet, just so you are aware, this is pursuant to Connecticut General Statute Section 7-107, which allows the Board of Selectmen to appoint a qualified person to fill a vacancy on any town board or commission if that vacancy hasn't been filled within 30 days.
And that is, I just need to point out, I'm not the lawyer here, but I just pointed out that the Board of Ed is a state body, not a town body. So I'm still not compelled to believe that we have the legal standing, but I need to point out before we make any nomination, and again, I'm going to be abstaining, we're not following our own process, because whenever we nominate or appoint members to boards and commissions, we interview everybody. I, for one, only know 4 of the 6 proposed members to the Board of Ed. And I only know the names because they've been published in the local papers. You know, even if I were to vote for these candidates, I would have to nominate, or I would have to interview all 6. So I'm not sure why we are putting forward any names unless Fred and Lauren, you know all 6.
So just quickly to respond to Janet. Thank you, Janet. The statute gives the first selectman the authority to do this, or the Board of Selectmen. I always choose to have the Board of Selectmen involved in all of this. Again, we're here because the will of not only the voters were subverted, the will of the 3 remaining Republicans were subverted. They are not in agreement on the candidate that the Democrats put forward, who could not even commit to voting with a Republican. And when asked if she would caucus, said, I don't know, maybe, probably. That's not a commitment. So this is a blatant attempt to gain a majority that was not there at the polls last year. So that is why I made a decision to step in here. It's the last thing I want to do right now. We have enough, like I said, on our plate. But with that,
I agree, but I just wanted to confirm, do you know all 6 candidates?
I know, well, the ones I've seen, I know them. In fact, there are several there that are really good friends of mine. But that misses the point here. This was done to subvert the will of the voters, and an emergency meeting was called when there was no emergency. I've been around a lot of e-cert bills in Hartford. This is no emergency. So, and I think there's precedent for this, and it will now, because it's going to be litigated in a court of law, we'll let them decide. And now listen, I hope that in the future, this board will get together and work together and agree on candidates and not look to see who's going to gain an advantage for a chairmanship.
So do I need to redo the motion, Barbara, that we will appoint the vacancy?
Yes,
Point.
to a
All right.
point.
So Lauren Raven, I motion that we appoint Paul Capielli to fill the vacancy, the Republican vacancy on the Board of Education.
Fred Camillo, I will second that. Janet will abstain.
Well, no, you're seconding. Now you have to say,
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, all those in favor, Fred Camillo is a yes. Thank you, Janet.
Lauren Raven, yes.
Janet Stone McWigan abstains.
Thank you. So a 2-0-1 vote. Seeing no other business before the board, is there a motion to adjourn?
Raven, so moved.
Fred Camillo will second that. All those in favor, Fred Camillo is a yes.
Lauren Raven, yes.
I'm in favor of adjourning.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Have a great day.